I'm going to look at the large companies now. So if I go back to when we talked at the beginning, we looked at how small companies get financing. And for large companies, I'm going to assume they're public, and that's not always necessarily true. Most large companies are public, but you have some very large companies that choose to remain private for a variety of reasons. They don't need the financing. They don't want to disclose things. And let's look at some of the things that you consider when you're going public. And so, if you are going public, essentially, and I'm going to assume this is a large company, that you will need to do an IPO, okay, which is an initial public offering. Okay, and an initial public offering is basically when you list on the stock market for the first time. So you list on a stock exchange for the first time. Okay. So when a company decides to go public, there's some pros and cons to that. So let's look at the benefits first of all. The first benefit is it gives you more access to equity. Because you're going to have now a larger number of investors, basically anywhere in the world, and choose to invest in your company. In the past, it was a private transaction that you would have to go find investors and they would want to invest in. You'd set up your own deal. Secondly, it sets an independent price. Okay, so you now have a price for your company, for your shares. That is set independently. It's not based on what you think. That's what they're actually trading at and what people are willing to pay for. And third, it gives the ability of existing shareholders to sell their shares. Okay, so that's actually a fairly big deal, because if you are a shareholder and the company's value has gone up and you have personal use for funds, you'd want to sell it. If it's a private company, you have to go out and find a buyer and negotiate a transaction. In this case, if it's a public company, you would just list it on your brokerage account, sell it, and you're done. Okay, and this obviously helps also venture capitalists and everyone who holds shares of the company. Okay, so what are the cons? So why do not all large companies choose to go public? First of all, there's a lot of regulation and administration. And so you will have to pay administration costs, regulatory filings, things like quarterly reports, annual reports. You have to publish them, and that leads to the next thing. You have a public information disclose or public disclosure. So you could have a situation where maybe you want to keep things secret to give you a competitive advantage. Now you're going to have a fewer number of secrets. You're disclosing your profit margins and things like that. And some companies it's not a big deal. Other companies it is. It's a big situation. Third is it's actually expensive. And so you have to pay for a variety of things. The ongoing costs. You also have to pay the underwriters, which is the investment banks that will be selling your shares for you and going through all that process. So it's not a cheap thing to do, which is why companies generally wait till they're a bit larger to try to go public. Okay, so how do you do it? So how do you go public? So the first thing to do is you would hire an investment banker. And you have a situation where they will basically handle the process for you. They will help you set the price for your shares if it's the first time you're issuing that, and then all of the administration, and then they'll help you also sell the shares. So they'll market it for you and create some sort of a demand. Okay. Secondly, the administration is you would be required to file a prospectus. And that tells you all of the key things, so it's gives the key information on a company and anything that investors would find useful. And then ultimately, when all of that is done, they would handle the IPO. Okay. That's the day that the shares are sold public. So you're now officially trading on a stock exchange for the first time, and anyone in the world is able to buy or sell your shares at that point.